Welcome back for another episode of the Dope Stroke Podcast Show. Joining me once again, we've got Trotty Golf and Chris Ryan. We've got a belter for you today. We're going to be talking about things that you see online that you should just quite simply ignore. So what's happened is we've each got a topic that we're going to cover that we always see, and it kind of annoys the death out of us. And we are going to go through these points in a little bit more detail.
Now, is this still a golf podcast? Is this still a golf podcast?
Well, it depends on which websites you might be browsing. But as such, for the purpose of our viewers and listeners, yes, it's a golf podcast, but it depends on where you get your golf content, what kind of golf content you get. We all know that in Thailand, they have the ping pong show, which is more related to table tennis. But on this occasion, we're going to stick with the subject of golf. So, Bubs, you are the mastermind behind a lot of our agendas for most of these episodes. So I think you can lead the way. How you doing?
I can lead the way. Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm in a new location again because my internet is like from 1975, where it works once in every 3 weeks. I'm now in a different room in the house, which is good. But yeah, no, I think look, we've been around golf for a long, long time, many, many years, and you hear, well, I guess as you said, advice online, but you hear it in person as well. Things that people say, kind of tales or things that have been passed down through generations that you just think like, it's just absolute rubbish, just crap. But people still believe them because they've been passed down through the generations. So, I mean, look, when I'm talking golf swing or the game of golf, like I could do a whole podcast on this. There's hundreds of them. And what's interesting is when I try and address these, they're like deep rooted in people's beliefs, and they really push back about some of the stuff that you try and disprove. So yeah, I think we can have a good discussion on this. I'm sure Trotty's got some things around club fitting, and I know Dazzy, you've got some ideas around kind of things that are in more kind of your domain. But yeah, I think we can have a good little debate here and dispel some of these myths that are holding people back. Probably.
Is your internet so bad that you're thinking about dial-up or what?
Yeah, it's really bad. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of probably like when you used to get those like cups and you'd tie a bit of string and you just put it to your ear and then like you'd go and walk around the corner. That might be better than what I've got at the moment. So
for nostalgia purposes, would you ever consider like a DVD that finds its way into the bargain barrel, or maybe like a marketplace in Malaysia? Would you ever consider that? What about if the internet was so bad that someone recorded that DVD on a laptop? What about that? What would you do if someone did that?
Well, I feel like I need to stand back here because Dazzler's face tells me that there's a story here, which I think is way more interesting than these bad golf myths. So come on, Trotty, spill the beans.
Mate, this is just the greatest story ever. I mean,
you can't say it though. Can't ever say it.
Right. We'll have a little pivot then.
Everyone's got their little closets, of cobwebs, Trotty just seems to live in mine.
But the bottom line is like the days of no internet, was that when the myths all began? You know what I mean? That bargain DVD barrels, is that where the myths came from? Because at the end of the day, there is a lot of total shite written about golf equipment. And the hard part is you can't break people in these myths. Golf equipment and fitting, people just think it's okay just to not be fit for golf clubs at all. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I tell you what I do want to say, actually, we haven't done much of it. I've obviously not seen you guys for a few weeks, and something I do absolutely want to say, and it's a roundabout thank you to Chris Ryan for this, and anyone listening to these podcasts. I'm going to post some stuff on this because I've been blown away by it. So those of you listen regularly, which I think is Daryl's nan, and that's about it. But basically, we were connected. She's got the DVD box set that she records off a laptop. So basically, we were connected with Scott Fawcett through Chris Ryan. And when we went into that podcast, I was like, don't know a lot about Scott. Knew he had Decade. And it's one of those things, and this gets into the myths, where I was like, yeah, Decade, no worries. I know what that is. I know what it does. Strokes gained. I get it. Anyway, listen to Scott. And he said to me 2 or 3 times, he can be, I don't want to say he's aggressive because that's not I've been thinking about how to phrase this. He is very direct because everything he says is based on data. Now, I love that. And I think with fitting, teaching, business, data, even as simple as your Shopify accounts, you get your data at the end of the day. What did you sell? What did you not sell? What, blah, blah, blah. Where were they sold? Amazing. Like, you can live off that and build a business. You don't have to be you don't have to be Richard Branson. You just have to freaking be able to live off of data. So Scott has this data that's in this app, and I'm like, yeah. But he says 3 times, you need to meditate. You need to me directly almost, you need to get into meditation. Because I was a bit of a hot-headed golfer when I was a kid. Now, not so much, but I'm like, all right, I could see that. So I end up going away and getting the app for Sam Harris, which is the guy that Scott always pushes. So I get this Sam Harris app, and I sit in, we've got a cupboard here that I sit in because it's the only place in the house that you can go that's like quiet. I should be doing these podcasts in these cupboards. And I start like meditating, and he's like, so objects in front of you and blah, blah, blah. It's just all wafty. Like, meditation, not sure it's for me. I think I need to be on the old Swazi Gold, Daryl. But I'm like, whatever, meditation, fair enough. So I give up on that. And this has been a long story, but I end up getting the app. I end up contacting Scott on my own, reaching out and say, listen, Chris Ryan and I and Daryl did a podcast with you, blah, blah, blah. We did say in the podcast we might follow up with some of the apps, and we never did, but could I bother you, please, for one, because he's a bit scary. And he sends me an app. So I get the app, and then I start to slowly dive into it. Watch some of his tutorials on how to input the data, because data is only as good as what you put in. What you get out, only as good as what you put in. There's myth number 1. And basically, data starts coming out, and I start diving into his product. Amazing. Yeah. So much information. I don't know if you've got the app or you've got his website. The information behind the paid wall is off the charts. And he does it like, I'm just sat here. You guys know the problem. The dog's now involved. You know the problem with my situation in this podcast. So I'm sat, and this is how he does his information. He's just a talking head in his office. It is all based on data. So I've been playing golf. I've put 5 or 6 rounds into this. I had one absolute shocker, which was bad score, but was like, night before was rough or day before was rough, whatever. Not in a place to play golf. But since then, I've played mediocre golf and scored the best I've scored in, I'm going to say 8 years, 9 years. Mediocre. And all I've done is pick the right targets and accept that I'm going to make a couple of mistakes. And rather than lose my mind, the statistics tell him that tour players would make certain mistakes from that scenario. So rather than you freaking react, just be like, what's the best outcome from this scenario based on my shot dispersion, which you then do, and then you do your best scenario from the next one, and you do your best scenario from the next one. If you make bogey, you've made bogey, but you got to avoid double chips. You got to avoid bogeys on par 5s. You got to try and avoid bogeys from, I think, 150 and in. You got to avoid penalty shots. I've had, since doing this, and I hate to do this because I'll kill myself here on this now, but I've had 1 double bogey in 6 rounds of golf, and I've had 1 3-putt. That's how, I mean, that's really, and I've had 1 penalty shot in 6 rounds. And you're sat talking to probably the worst driver in, easily would have been the Galaxy 6 weeks ago. I'm going to say now the worst driver in California. So I've taken the Galaxy down to California just by different targets. Unbelievable. And 1 shot shape.
You know, I've mentioned that a little bit over numerous podcasts, and I guess it's probably come from Scott because I follow him fairly closely now and what he says. And you've said to me a couple of times, Trotter, you said, you keep harping on about targets, but I genuinely think it is the lowest hanging fruit for an amateur golfer, because I think it could be construed as negative play, but I don't think it is. Just smart play. When you look at the stats between, let's say, a 5 handicapper and an 18 handicapper, so a big difference in handicaps. If you're looking at birdies and how many birdies they make a round, the difference is literally nothing. But when you look at bogeys, it's huge, or doubles, it's huge. So really, you should be going out there thinking, how can I play golf today to avoid bogeys and doubles? Rather than saying, okay, I need to get 4 or 5 birdies. It's just not going to happen. But if you can play to avoid bogeys, and it's tough because you can stand there with, like a gap wedge in your hand from 100 yards, and you're trying to force yourself to aim 25 feet left of the flag. And it feels like I shouldn't really be aiming there. I've got a wedge in my hand. I've just come off a double, so I should be going to chase this flag. And that's almost like the worst thing you can do, reacting to previous shots. As you said, Trotty, let it happen. Doubles happen. Tour pros make doubles, but each shot, you've got to approach that in, what's the best target for me with this club from this position, and you isolate that particular shot. And I'm not preaching that I know as much as Scott on this topic, but I think when you dive into it, as you said, it's so valuable. And if golfers could just implement a little bit of that, they'd be so much better.
I've found that I've always found this in my data. I'm not, you get that bounce back stat. I don't track that. I do track my stats, but I don't track bounce back. But I found like I have blow ups in like early on in the round. I can be shaky because I don't know how I'm hitting it on any given day. And then as the round goes on, I can make a mistake. And then to your point, 100% I can chase it. Whereas now I'll sit, ride the storm out, calm again. And to your point again, like there's a couple of par fives at this place I play at a lot. The second shots are always, you can get there depending on whatever tees you play. They're from 250 to sometimes 200, but sometimes there's a lot of water around, and I'll just lay the thing up and I'll just hit the wedge onto like 20 feet, and I'll just roll it down and move on. Brilliant stuff, anyway. And I think that is absolutely the way golf should be played. It's absolutely the way. Also realize that my driver I've been using has been absolute trash. I literally just got my hands on the new TaylorMade driver. Not going to say much more than that, but I don't know if I've got the spec right yet. I know the swing weight's not right, but it is. And I'm not just saying this. It is 5-10 times better than the previous driver. And I'd gone back 2 models. I was using one that had a crack in it. And this is a guy who can get his hands on any driver, pretty much, TaylorMade make, no problem. And I was just at my wit's end with it. But again, I think it's the combination of I'm only hitting draws now or pushes. So you're only missing right. And then he put something up about David Duval and Duval talking about shot shaping. And another thing that kills me, all these new kids coming into the game, no one knows who Double D is. How can you not know who Double D is? A, he was so cool, the coolest bloke probably to play in the last 25 years. And B, he just was, if Tiger hadn't been a thing, he'd have been world number 1 for 15 years. Like, yeah, you can talk about Phil. Sure, I think Double D was better than Phil. And no one knows who he is. And then my cue, the boy on the camera, legend, works for me. I'm like, Double D's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, David Duval. No idea what you're talking about. Looked at me as if I was talking about freaking Darrell Evans and his Bargain Barrel DVD set. I mean, unbelievable. So that people should, if you come into golf, I'm all for this YouTube jazz and coming in and, hey, Grant Horvat's the man. Sure, Grant's a great lad. He's the man. Come into your entry into golf is through. You should be stopped immediately and sent a Bargain Barrel DVD that contains Payne Stewart, David Duval. There should just be those 2 on repeat. Maybe Lee Trevino and Hogan. Yeah, Lee Trevino. And you watch a 15-minute DVD with those lads before you move on. And we should have Darrell narrating it in golf shoes in a flipping nightclub in Birmingham with a Malaysian DVD that's recorded on a laptop. 100%. And now you're like, once you've watched those 4 lads, then you can move on.
I want to go back one small step here a little bit.
I just want to say before we get going, because I've got another myth.
We want to get you.
No. Grant Horvat, fair dues, phenomenal business, phenomenal YouTube, but he's on these Tacoma direct-to-consumer irons, right?
Yeah.
I think I would imagine they'll sell the nuts out of them for sure. Have you ever hit them?
No. That's the one with the curved faces, right? The irons.
No. That's a Voda.
Is that a myth?
That's a myth. Curved faces a myth. I'm going down that rabbit hole. That's a Voda. Those things are what Bryson DeChambeau won the US Open with. Jason Day. There was a great post on the PGA. They've got my interest. I'm not sure about curved faces on irons, but they got me interest. But these flipping Tacomas, again, they will sell. And people listening to this, if they even get to it, they'll probably own a set of Tacomas because they might have come into golf through Grant, and I love it. And Grant's in on that whole thing. But those Tacomas, mate, are direct-to-consumer on irons. Not sure. Not sure about it. Think it's a myth. Don't think it can be done.
Well, staying on myth, something that Bubs just pointed out a minute ago about targets. Do you think it's a bit of a, I'm not quite sure exactly how to phrase this, but you're going into the pin with a wedge because you say 100 yards away. You said trying to have that confidence to aim 25 feet left or right at the target. Is it a myth that once you're inside a certain range. And I'm thinking about the Bob Rotella books. He would always say that once you get underneath 100 yards, you just aim at the target. Is that actually, and from a technicality perspective, a bit of a myth?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it depends on who you're looking at, because if you look at the best in the world, ladies and men across the tours, a lot of those flags are going to be pretty well tucked, especially at the weekend, or if they're trying to control the score. So even though you might have 100 yards, the pin might be 4 or 5 paces from the edge. And even the top players, 100 yards, they're going to have a dispersion. They're not within a yard of their target each time. So it might be a case of them aiming, a yard left or 2 yards left. So anything, probably 100 yards, if the flag's pretty central in the green, they might be taking dead aim. But you start to push those flags, the back of the green, the front of the green, the side of the green, they're probably just airing on, the center of the green side. They're certainly not 20 feet from the flag. But when you start to then, roll that out over the amateur golfers who play this game with a wedge, you need to be going certainly a little bit more away from the flag than what you may think.
And then that comes into, there's thousands of these things. I've got 2 for you, which you can lead with the drive for show, putt for dough. Got to be total bollocks. And then the question that I've got for you, Bubs, and there's not like a little tagline myth, unless Daryl's found it in the DVD shop, but can you adjust? Do you think you can have a swing thought for your downswing?
Yeah, you can. Whether it's a good thing is up for debate.
Can you change your swing and your downswing?
No, and I think that many years ago, I was aware of a test. I could not tell you where this was done or who this was done by, but it was indoors. And this is not exactly on the same lines, but they basically got people to hit balls and they tracked, strike location, club delivery, shots, whatever. And then they did the same test. And at the top of the backswing, they turned all the lights out in the room. And they almost found there was zero difference in quality of strike, delivery numbers. And it was almost to the point, look, if you, whatever you think of from the top of the downswing, it's impact, ain't going to change it. I do think you can have feels or ideas. I think certainly for me, if I'm trying to hit a shot, whether it be a fade or a low one or a high one, I've got kind of feels that I'm kind of working towards. And look, I think there can be people out there who would say you can have downswing thoughts. I personally wouldn't advise it. I think you can have some thoughts pre-swing in your routine. And I think when you're over the ball, you can maybe have an idea or a concept or a feel that you're searching for. But I don't think you can have swing thoughts. I don't think there's enough time. I
don't either. I have a couple of things I try and do in my downswing, and I play my worst golf in the history of golf.
Yeah.
Horrendous. If there's a downswing thought, it's not good.
Yeah, but everyone's going to have their different little recipe. And I think you do have to try and find what works for you. So, I think for me, and this is maybe just because I haven't done the right things or trained the right things, but if you said to me, go and play golf, and when you step into the golf ball, don't think of anything, I'd struggle with that because I wouldn't know what to actually, where my mind would go. So I have to think of something. And to me, sometimes it's almost a feeling of, okay, I've hit this shot before and it felt like that, and I'm just looking for that feeling. But I don't think you want to go too complicated with swing thoughts. I think it's just difficult. You end up playing golf swing, not golf.
Where do you stand on out of the fairway versus out of the rough? So let's just get back to that drive show putt for dough. And let's say that, and let's keep it real. You can hit it 10 to 12 yards further with optimum launch conditions, but you're going to miss 11% more fairways. Or you can launch it 10, spin it 29, 3,000, goes 11%, 10% shorter, but you hit an extra 3 fairways. What do you do there? Because that's a bit of a drive for show, putt for dough conversation. I guess the short question is, optimum launch conditions the be-all and end-all for driving? Or if someone showed up with you a little steep and a little spinny, where would you go?
On a macro level, so across all golfers, all courses, all scenarios, I would be saying the extra distance is beneficial. Now you go micro and you pull out a US Open course where the rough is 7 inches. There might be a situation where you'd rather be a bit short in fairway, but I think for the majority of golfers playing this game, extra distance is good, because the rough isn't overly penalising the course that we play. It's not going to suddenly mean you're wedging out sideways. But I think what the point you're alluding to there is that we were always told as kids, driving is just for show, but the scores or whether you win a tournament is made up on putting. And sometimes you could start tracking stats and say, well, I did have fewer putts on that day, and that's why I won. But the more data that's coming out with stuff like shots gained, what we're sort of realising now is that you can look at the number of putts you've had, and it's going to be less, but it was actually because of your tee shots. So, for example, if I hit it 320, someone hits it 250, and we're both in the fairway, because I've hit it, much further off the tee, I'm naturally going to be closer to the pin on the green more often. Therefore, I'm going to have fewer putts. So you can look at the putts and say, well, I had fewer putts, but it wasn't because I putted better. It was just because I was 70 yards more down the fairway. Therefore, I was going in with a much shorter club, so naturally I'm going to be closer. So the more we dive into data, we're realizing that on the surface level, it can look like putting won the tournament, but actually it was the fact that you drove it much further, you drove it more in play, you had shorter irons in that gave you shorter putts, and you happened to hold more of those. So, there's been numerous counts of golfers who've putted average and won big events. I mean, I'll go back to Aaron Rai when he won Abu Dhabi. He didn't put terribly, don't get me wrong, but I think he was like 37th in putting, but he was like number 1 fairways hit, number 2 or 3 proximity to hole with his irons. So he didn't have to put great. He just had more looks at birdie than everyone else. He had shorter birdie putts than everyone else. So relative to other people, he putted okay and won the tournament. So, myth of, you can't win a tournament unless you put really well is, you can't put terribly and win, but you can basically drive it so good that an average putting week, you can still come out on top.
But I guess so that's really interesting, because when you're trying to base your decisions on, should you hit off with a driver or 3-wood or whatever the case may be, would the logical step actually be to kind of work somewhere in the middle? So you're trying to go, what's going to give me the best opportunity to have the closest proximity to the hole? And then you would use the tee, whatever helps you achieve that from the tee. That's the club that you should take from the tee. Do we not think one shot ahead enough? Is my point. I guess it's for a skilled golfer, right?
I think now it's got to be based on that dispersion and the cone, and 11% was the number I said there. So I've just picked up this new driver, TaylorMade, like I told you. I've got it more lofted than ever before, because for me, I think the driver comes out great, but I think the day I was hitting these first ones, I wasn't hitting it great. So I played with it the weekend, and it's a bit spinny. So it's like, it's going straight though. So just given my history of not driving it overly straight, I'm going to lose a few yards for a little bit, because then I go back to that app, and the app says more fairways you hit. Like, it literally says focus on hitting fairways, because your strokes gained from the fairway is quite a bit better than strokes gained from the rough. We're talking about Aaron Rai. I know that he struggled a bit from the rough with long irons, which he would on tour. I mean, I'm not playing tour golf courses, so I totally get, that situation. But I think as you look at courses like Bubsy and I played a course around here that's in a canyon fairly tight. I think that goes back to cones. Yeah. And I think that I would have benefited from using that day, and for sure, I mean, that day was terrible. But most days, more 3-woods off the tee, just because the cone is narrower. And you just got to, and that's where it's one shot shape. I think one shot shape's massive. And again, Scott talks about it. Like, if there's a back right pin, why are we always trying to feed it into a back right pin with a left to right shot? Why don't we just, if our shot's a draw, aim at the flag and draw it off the flag? Because it might go 25 feet left, but that's okay. If you double cross a left to right fader and it goes 35 yards left, well, now you're in the left trap or in a penalty area. I think he said, and the other thing is that he says, is it takes away the decision, because the decision causes doubt. If you've got doubt, you're not committed to the shot. If you're not committed to the shot, you aren't confident. If you're not confident, you don't make a good swing. Honestly, I am going to really hammer this stuff, because it was almost like an aha moment. And to be playing golf for 20, 30 years and have an aha moment it was like going to the sweeper putter. I'm on the old fucking broomy now. And boys, that and Decade are the two best things I've used in the last 2 years, which is bonkers. Last 5 years.
I will say, which is on the same sort of topic, which is a bit of a myth. And again, I'm talking about the average club golfer who's got a handicap and plays recreationally. You know, we hear this kind of par 5, can't get there in 2, so I'm going to lay up to my favourite yardage. Let's say it's 100 yards. I mean, that is a load of rubbish, basically, because if you're... So from 100 yards, I might be relatively better than I am from 50 yards. But if I put myself 50 yards, I'll still be closer to the hole than I am from 100 yards. And even if I'm good from 100 yards, if I'm laying it up, there's very little chance of me hitting that perfect shot and leave myself 100 yards. I'm going to misstrike it, leave myself 120. So as a rule, and yeah, again, for the tour pros, it does change because they've maybe got different flags where they need to have more spin so they can leave themselves further back. But for the most part, golfers listening to this, if you're on a par 5, as long as there's no trouble there, the best layup is just get it as close to the green as you can. Obviously,
so that's interesting.
You've got hazards, you've got bunkers, you've got to appreciate those. But if there's nothing there, just push it as close to the green as you can. Because if I'm terrible at chipping from 15 yards, I'm still going to be 6 feet away. Yeah. Whereas if I leave myself 100 yards, a great shot from 100 yards is like 20 feet.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, you've got to get close to the green.
To add here. So I had a shot par 5 yesterday, went for the green in 2, didn't hit this shot very good, and it was short the green by 50. I would not inherently lay up to 50 yards. I would lay up to 100. So I'm at 50. Pins back right, off a slope, typical San Diego, lots of slopes on the greens, quickish greens, guarded by a trap. I aim left, I hit it to 12 feet. I thought it was not a bad shot. It's 4 yards, 4 paces, right? I hole it, downhill slider left to right. Great putt. Like, no business really holding that. Move on. Put it into the app afterwards, and it says on there, your distance from the hole on that shot was losing strokes to hit it to 12 feet. It might have been 14 feet that I put in. And it basically flagged it, and it said, that shot, your proximity is too far away for the level of golf that you're showing on these scores from 50 yards. Now, it was a tucked flag, but I deliberately aimed left from 50. And that's the first time the product has said to me, that close, go at the thing. Don't be aiming left. And I thought about it, and I'm like, you don't really pull 50-yard pitch shots, and you don't really push them either. And if you do, it's horrendous. So then I started thinking about targets and cone, and I was like, yeah, that was too safe. So I think from 100 yards, you hit it to 12 feet, you'd be pretty freaking stoked. Yeah. I would be. I mean, I'm not freaking Tiger Woods. I'm not Double D. Malaysian version.
I love that pause in that conversation there. That was lovely.
So tell us about this Malaysian business you got, Daryl. There's got to be some myths in there, hasn't there? Some learnings from that business.
Jarrell Enterprises International, isn't it?
But no, look, I think there's a lot of myths. I think direct consumer golf clubs needs work. I think online fitting could be the future. I think that the ping system, which goes back from when time began, is still phenomenal. I think if you're getting a fit and someone pulls a tape measure out and gets a ping chart out on you, I think that's a great start. I really do think to any fitting, if someone's measuring wrist to floor measurements and they've got a little ping man with all the colors next to him, golden. That is a good start to your fitting. So I agree with that. I just do not agree with direct to consumer. Everyone must play this. Now, you mentioned Devoda earlier. They do the single length, they do the combo length. I think there might be something in that. Don't know enough about it yet. I think there could be something in that. I think the stuff that Titleist are putting out where everyone's apex needs to be the same on their irons and the difference in the ball speed between each iron needs to be, I think, 4 miles an hour. They say, I don't like that. I had a player come up to me, granted he's a little bit older fella, but he's like, do you agree with the apex of my 4 iron being the same as the apex of 5 iron, being the apex of my like short irons? I was like, I don't. But I would also be like, with my style of fitting, I think the player is the boss. And you need to really watch what the player wants and demands before you start ripping lofts and lies. Because someone might want a stronger 4 iron to get rid of we had this chat to Bubsy, for example. I still don't think that 7 might be for him based on ball speed and golf courses he plays, spin rates he causes. So, is the 7 wood for everyone? No. We touched on before we got on this, is the shaft is the engine. Shut up. Now you're just
that's
talking
a big
shit.
one, isn't it? I hear that all the time. Like people, still now, sort of, they're going for a fitting and it's, I want to try different shafts because the shaft is the engine. I mean, obviously you guys know. I'm talking, when I hear that, it's punters. I mean, from your time on tour, Daryl, do tour pros have that view at some point before you know, maybe they just get on tour, or are they a bit more educated on the whole?
Maybe a
No,
rookie
they're a
does.
lot more, yeah. But even the rookies these days are quite educated. I mean, Troy will know way more, or have a lot more examples, a lot more detail than I would. But I mean, what I found anyway with tour players, they don't really change the shaft all that much. They might stick with similar profiles, even if they change from one manufacturer to another. But they're always quite similar. But my view on the shaft being the engine of the golf club is so simplistic. It's basically, if the shaft was that good as an engine, surely you could use a driver in a greenside bunker. Well, the answer to that question is quite logically no. The club head, the club head is the most important. They're all important.
Loft.
But the club head has the biggest influence on the ball flight, and like Trotty just said there, loft being key. But I do think that the shaft will provide feel. It'll provide a consistency in his feel, which helps you hit the ball out the middle more often. But Trotty can expand way more on it.
But mate, you can hit a golf club, and within 3 shots, an amazing player will adjust to that club.
Yeah,
and then the biggest thing and again, I was chatting to a guy the other day. I'll stop dropping names on manufacturers here, but he was busting a lot of these myths, and he and I were talking. We only had 45 minutes. I could still be on the phone with him now, and in the future I'd love to have him as a podcast guest. But bottom line is I said to him I thought swing weight was huge, and he said it is, but for the biggest impact difference shot to shot, you give a good player a different swing weight, and in 3 or 4 swings they adjust to it. So if you give them a C2, they'll adjust to that.
Yeah. Do you know what I had a fitting a few weeks ago. Can't talk loads on it, but I had a fitting, and this came up. Really interesting. So we were into.
Was it direct to consumer?
No, it wasn't.
Bosch
so
ordered. Control
so
C.
we were doing the fitting, and I get given a club, and I hit the first one. I think it was like Healy. Next one was Healy. Next one was more middle, but it wasn't great. And he went to take it off me. And he went, I'll have that back. And I said to him, but hang on. I said, give me a few more shots. I reckon I can get used to it. Because that's exactly what I don't want you to hit me with it. He said, I don't want you to adjust your swing to get to use this club. He said, I'm just going to give you a club that just works straight away. And as we went through it, he gave me another one. It was like middle. And he was like, there you go. You don't need to keep persisting with it because we've got loads of options we can play with.
But what shaft did you end up in? One of the, I already know the answer. Don't say it. Begin with R. The model is an R. Just forget it. Move on because we'll be in a problem there. No. Move on. So basically, he would have ended up in a golf shaft. But I think golf shafts come into families. And it's like, I went through this system 6 months ago, and the shaft it put me in, exactly the same profile of what I play. The second choice was the one I played the previous 7 years to that. And it's like, you're killing me here. You go through these rooms in these fitting centers and they line up these shafts and you feel like you're on freaking psychedelics because there's all the colors of the rainbow and all the weights and you're like, oh my God. But you just have a little look at the price tag on them. The shaft, you're going to believe in a golf shaft that is similar to whatever, which is why I think if you bowl up to a fitting, you should take the best club you've ever had in time. And for me, like I had that old Rocket Balls white and green with a DVS, a 70X Aldila shaft in it. Thing was an absolute gem. And I took off to go and live in Hong Kong. And I said to Daryl, can you just keep this in your house for me, please? That me Ping Zing 2 nickel. I said, I can't. I'm traveling all over. I don't know where my life's going. Just hold on to it. Guess where that was? Found it in a Malaysian market in a DVD box set. I got back to England. I said, mate, well, how come I've managed to buy my own through? Oh, yeah, gave it to me, mate.
Retail
what are you doing?
I saw there. Yeah.
I said, buddy, that was the best club I've ever owned. Where's my Ping Zing 2? He's like, oh, yeah, I've still got that. It keeps the back door open on a freaking summer's day. I was like, Jesus Christ. But he got rid of the freaking 3-wood. I had to get him. Yeah, you had to go and ask your buddy for it back. You traded some of those hooky DVDs to get it back. But the point is like Del Boy over here. But that club has been like the barometer because that's the one you use for swing weight, grip thickness, the whole lot.
To go on to one thing that I think as well, that's a bit of a myth when it comes to the fitting side, is they fit the flex profile of the shaft based on club speed alone. And you see that a lot in retail fitting. So they go, oh, yeah, your club head speed is X, so therefore you need to have an S flex or a regular flex. And that's not true, because, a regular flex in one manufacturer is the same as an S flex in another, even down to the weight. So they look at the weight. I had this the other day, even Lloyd mentioned, he said, oh, this one's a little bit heavier because this one's got 65. It says 65 whatever, and this one says 60 whatever. And I said, yeah, but mate, they might be the same weight, or the 60 might be heavier. It's just telling you it's in the 60 category. Doesn't mean that it's exactly 60. So I feel like how they fit the shafts is definitely a bit of a misnomer.
You tip trim, your butt trim, your swing weight, you put a heavy grip on. The things all got fannied about at that point anyway. Like, one of the things I'm interested to learn about, I think, next year, and it's like I have my views, but I'm very much trying not to hinder and like block them. But these thicker grips and these jumbo grips, and everyone like these mid sizes, like, I like the thought of it. I try them, and then I'm like, don't know. Because I think you can own, and that's what comes back to data. I think you can only tell if this stuff is genuinely working if the data shows an uptick in performance.
I've got a question for you then, because this came, well, I first saw this Belfry days, maybe 2005, 2006, and I don't really hear about it anymore. Do you remember when shaft puring was a thing? Because that was the point where they were kind of like, they were like oscillating the shaft in a device, and they were trying to rotate it until it was oscillating the right way. But then I guess my thought process was, these manufacturers, the tolerances are going to get better, so there's not going to be as many imperfections. Then you've got the loss sleeve where you're turning the shaft anyway. Is that a thing? Was it ever a thing? Is it still a thing?
So TaylorMade basically said that the spining puring wasn't a thing. And basically they were like saying that because you moved the loft sleeve, it really wasn't a thing. But then obviously puring keeps going, and a few players do it on tour, and you look at it and you're like, I mean, Tiger does it. He gets his stuff pure. He says he doesn't, but I've seen it on the truck that he does. So I don't know. And then it's designed to reduce ovaling, which is that thing like when the shaft changes through the downswing, apparently it ovals a little bit, and then the deflection. Well, the ball's gone when it's deflecting. I'm still out on that, whether it's the thing or not the thing. I don't know.
I think with the ovaling, just for the people that are listening, that basically, if you imagine a straw in a soft drink of some description, it's basically, if you start to bend that shaft, it'll start to flatten out. So the ovaling is how it holds its shape. So what you're trying to do is keep the shaft to be as circular as possible, because it stays in its profile as long as possible, but also makes that kick point the most impactful to generate speed, etc., etc. So my personal view is, just rewinding the clock, rolling back the years here, is that with these top profile shafts, the way that the graphite is rolled, the way that the graphite is manufactured with the resins, etc., they're so well made. I think that when it comes to the graphite shaft market and how many layers of graphite there is, very, very difficult to be able to say, that it needs to be spine aligned in some sort of description. But I do think that when you get into the cheaper shafts, like budget clubs, something that you might find in Malaysia, Trotty, before you get in there, that's when you're likely to see some really aggressive ovaling. And I think that's when it could be bad for your game. But that obviously links back to your point earlier. Everybody should be custom fit. Even if you are a beginner of some, you should just get fit. It's like everybody can walk with a pair of shoes that's too big or too small, but you'll definitely walk more efficiently if it's the right size. It's the same freaking thing. I think you might as well get fitted.
You touched on there the handmade stuff. I think that is under huge pressure, because there are companies now coming out in the graphite world that are taking shaft manufacturing for graphite way further forward. So the days of our handcrafted small batch I think that's in huge jeopardy. It's 2025. What are we handcrafting? What are we? Come on, boys. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a bit like that DVD shop in Malaysia. It's in jeopardy. The internet now, Daryl. We're not on dial-up. Bubsy's gone to another venue.
Well, you know what I mean? You're not living in Asia. It's gone out of business, that little looky shop, isn't it?
Well,
Maybe not-
I ain't got the supply chain that you had for me
Supply
back
chain.
in the UK.
Maybe
You
we
were
should.
like, listen, mate, bring me some hookies.
Inflation shipping costs are too much
Bring
now.
me some hookies. I want to record your laptop.
Maybe we should release some premium Dope Stroke merch, which is handmade.
Yeah.
That's the way you
Get
got to
the
market
DVD box set on the dopestroke.com website.
Absolutely.
it.
Right.
The old Jakarta special.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna bring this back onto Golf Swing.
Can't
Because
buy them in Jakarta.
right, if we're talking Golf Swing, like honestly, the stuff that I hear online and stuff, but I mean, like, there's so many myths. But one which is been around forever and a day, and it's not going anywhere, even though I do my best to try and prove it otherwise. Is, and I think I've touched on this in the podcast, but the idea of taking the hands out of the golf swing for more consistency. I
Goes
mean,
in with thicker grips, doesn't it?
Jesus Christ. I mean, there are people out there, I've given lessons to these people who say things like, I'm just not consistent. I think it's because I'm quite handsy. So I want to use the bigger muscles to make it more consistent. And look, the theory is great, but it is not the reality at all. Your hands and arms are so active through the golf swing, and they have to be. Like, they literally have to be if you want to create any speed at all. If you think about the shots that you hit, a chip and a putt, you might be able to hit a chip and a putt without any wrists. But I use the Hack Motion, great device. You can put it on either wrist. It is almost impossible to hit a shot where you don't use your hands and arms. So if you think about the golf swing, you're going to have kind of radial ulnar deviation, which is basically like the wrist cock. Your wrist flattens and extends, and all of these things are happening throughout the golf swing, backswing, downswing. And I think if there's a golfer out there who believes that taking the hands out is the way to go, they're missing a whole kind of raft of ways that they can improve their ball flight, improve their strike, improve their distance. Taking the hands out is only going to result in weak shots, low launching, not efficient strikes. It's just such a myth. Golfers would be better to go, okay, my hands play a massive role. Let's get a better understanding about how they do actually work, tap into that, and they're going to see much, much more improvements.
So has it come from Bryson, Tommy Fleetwood, and like make the face passive through him? Where's it come from?
Yeah, I think so. Because, I mean, you look at someone like Bryson, you look at someone like Tommy, different finish, shorter finish. They might have a different hand action or arm action, but there's still hand action in there. Your arms are swinging relative to your torso. So if you were to hold your torso still, your arms swing up and to the right in the backswing. In the downswing, they swing up and to the left. So your arms are always moving relative to your torso. Your wrists are moving in both directions, radial, ulnar, flexion, extension. Your forearms are rotating through around about 90 degrees. So you got your arms swinging, your forearms rotating, your wrists moving through 2 dimensions. I mean, there's lots going on. So to even think logically you can take the hands out is just such a bad idea.
I think it comes back to it's a swing thought that
100%.
can't be like a downswing thought. And I think, and you tell me, where you put the club in certain positions in the downswing, which is set from your body mechanics and how you move, dictates how that club is released. Because subconsciously, your body is going to do what it needs to do to try and hit that ball where you're aiming. And I think if you are steep, which I can get steep at times, I think that then impacts how you release the golf club as your subconscious athlete mind tries to put the ball where you're trying to hit it.
I think that's 100% correct. If you change where the club is in the downswing, face angle, delivery position, where the head is in space, naturally you will change what you do. And even if a golfer is listening to this thinking, I'm not skilled, I'm not talented, there is something deep inside them that is desperately trying to get that club to point back at the target. What's interesting, if you think of...
Well, hang on, let me just dive in here and finish here. What I think is because golf course architecture is so key to this, because if you feel claustrophobic and you get to a tee shot and there's trouble left, trouble right, you're not decisive on a shot shape. You're then like putting yourself into which again comes back to, even from doing these podcasts, how I've improved through talking to you, and then in turn the Scott Fawcett thing, because then we've not We played golf once in the last 2 years. I played horrendous. You told me that one of the training aids I had was probably the right way to go. So I was like, okay, fair enough. Went away, hammered a bit of that. But it was like, that's just the same train I've been on for the last 2 decades. It was all mindset, shot shape, and being aware of the information of what works for you. But absolutely, I agree. Like when I swing at my best, no doubt the face rotates on camera at maybe a frame, 2 frames slower than if I'm out of position. But realistically, when you put that into the real world, no one's seeing that.
No,
It's impossible. And I think those cameras have got so good that now we see Bryson, we see Tommy, and we think that's it. That's the way to go.
Well, look, if you've got a golf club handy, you can do this. But if you just took a setup, took your normal grip, and then just stood upright, so you're not in golf posture, you stood upright, and you put the club out in front of you, those grooves are going to be, the leading edge is going to be vertical, up and down. So if you keep your arms in front of you and you just kind of rotate your chest a little bit, those grooves are going to stay vertical. So the face is kind of opening and closing, but it's staying square to the arc. But if you keep rotating, you're going to get to a point where you get pretty stuck. And the only way to get that club to go more around your body is to start to fold the arms. And when you start to fold the arms, what you'll see is that club face goes from vertical to pretty much horizontal. So it's rotated away from the target by 90 degrees, right? That happens in every golf swing. Now, someone like a DJ, flex wrist, it's going to be less, but it is still rotating. That was through hands and arms. So if you do that, you've now got the ability to get the club kind of round behind you. And if you start to work your body and turn back towards where you started, those grooves are still at horizontal. So how are you going to get those grooves back to vertical? It's not the body, it's what you do with your hands and arms. So if anyone out there makes a normal backswing, the face is opening by 90 degrees. You have got to square that face. So another myth is the body squares the face. I mean, just absolute crap. Your arms are doing it. So there's no golfer on the planet who keeps the face square to the plane or the arc throughout the golf swing. So, and that is one of, I think, the biggest, going back to your point, Shotty, that is the biggest reason why golfers struggle. Because once that face opens by 90 degrees, there are multiple different ways that you can square it. The issue is there's only one correct way. What are some of the bad ways? We'll release it early, back up the body. All these are mechanisms that square the face, which are kind of instinctive and natural for golfers to do, but they're wrong. So there's only one way to do it correctly. And I just think that there's 2 myths really there are body squares the face, it doesn't. And taking the hands and arms out of the golf swing is a good thing. It's just not. If your golfers could learn how to correctly control the face with the hands and arms, they'd be so much better at this game.
How you measure is everything. How you capture is everything. We did a video together out here in California, and it was on the Full Swing Kit launch monitor. I mean, a myth is that thing isn't super accurate. Well,
crazy.
Watch the freaking videos. You know what I mean?
Within 1%.
Unbelievable day, that really, wasn't it, to be fair? And 1%. The fact that they put the balls on the line and were like, listen, film what you want. We're going to show you that you're full of shite. Fair play. And then I still have conversations now, and you almost have to take yourself out of them because I was with some of the best players in the game last week, and just some of the comments are just wrong. So anyone listening to this, if you've got yourself a set of Tacoma irons and now you stood with your arms out in front of you looking at a DVD from Daryl from Malaysia and you're swinging around looking at the release, best players in the world have done that too. Even Daryl's done it.
Right. Hey, look, to all the listeners, I am just as much in the dark as you are about this. As soon as we hit stop, I'm going to get the... I'm going to get the lowdown of this.
You're not getting the lowdown. Not even you, Bugs. Yeah. But I've got a little myth, which is not related to golf swing or fitting, actually. And I think
markets don't pay the bills.
Markets don't pay the bills. You've got to think bigger than that. You've got to go plural. You've got many markets.
Okay.
No. It's to do with, this is more of a business-y related one, or actually a sponsorship related one, and really primarily aimed at sort of those golfers at the golf club that are, top amateurs or certainly pretty good amateurs who want to turn pro. And it's their view on what sponsorship is. That's what I want to talk about. So basically, they think that logo placement is sponsorship, and that could not be further from the truth. My view on how this should work, and this is, I'm not sure if I've said it on here before, but basically sponsorship is access to an audience. That's what you're paying for. You've then got to spend some dough activating that audience in order to win the business. So just bear with me here. Imagine, let's rewind the clock, because we're talking about it earlier about nightclubs when we were out for lunch earlier today. And if you spent 10 or 20 bucks entering a nightclub, that money that you've paid to access that nightclub, access that audience in the nightclub, that's sponsorship. The rest of it is marketing. So when you're inside the nightclub, and you're trying to joust a little bit with whoever you're trying to joust with, you've got to put out a bit of charisma. You've got to buy a few drinks at the bar. That's marketing.
Not anymore.
That's what it takes to win the business.
Swipe left, swipe right now.
Yeah, but you got to pay for the app, right? There's your entry point. Swiping left, swiping right. That's only going to lead you to a restaurant that you got to pay for. So ultimately, that's still marketing. The principle is still exactly the same. It's not going to change. So my frustration, which I think is a myth when it comes to a lot of these young golfers as they come to or try to come to the ranks, is they speak to the wealthiest member in the golf club because they've figured out who that person is. And they go, oh, hey, Billy Big Boy, listen, I'm really looking for sponsorship to go into next year. I've got to pay for these golf lessons that cost this much. The gym membership's this, travel's that, entry fees are this, blah, 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 blah.
Where did Billy Big Boy get his cash from?
Insurance, I think. Or insurance, selling it to those people that were buying DVDs in Malaysia.
I was going to get there. Yeah.
I know you were. Trust me, I know you were. So he's made all his dough. Perfect. He's happy. But the young sort of wannabe pro is kind of laying out this case and saying, look, if there's any chance that you can give me like 5 or 10 grand next year to go towards that would be perfect. And in exchange, I'll put a logo on my shirt somewhere and perfect. Nah, that's not the way that you should do it, because these youngsters that are coming to the ranks, they know people. They don't appreciate they know people, but they know people. What they should be doing is auditing their contacts book, figuring out, who the market sellers are, who the insurance guys are, who this guy is, who that person is, and really start to audit that down. So the next time they go to Billy Big Boy and they say, hey, look, I noticed you're in insurance. I've got a business opportunity for you. They go, okay, what's that all about? Then they'd say, okay, what I want to do is I want to host 3 networking days where I bring you along to play in, me with 2 other guys, play a 4-ball at this golf course, and this golf course. It's an opportunity for you to meet people in my network, which you might be able to go out and do business with. In addition to that, I'll do some company golf experiential stuff with some of your VIP clients. We'll get them out into the golf course. We'll roll out the red carpet. We'll play that course and this course, and maybe we go and watch a football game in the afternoon or whatever it might be. And however you choose to narrate that. The point is that you're allowing a potential sponsor to access your network. So at the end, then that young pro should be able to say, okay, so in exchange for all of that access to my network, that's going to be worth 7.5, 10 grand to you for next year. And in addition to that, what I'll do is I'll put logo placement on my golf bag just so that people will recognize that I'm in association with you. And that allows me to create further introductions beyond the scope of logo placement. Now you're starting to, if you're Billy Big Boy with your insurance company, you're thinking, I've got these 2 opportunities. One sounds like it's a charity case, and the other one is actually genuinely trying to help me access his audience. Which one are you likely to spend your money with? It's obviously going to be the second one, right?
So why do you think that's a common belief? Is it because I'm sticking to golf? Is it because we don't really see the behind the scenes? All we see is, news story breaks that Sergio Garcia has signed with Adidas, and we suddenly then see him with logos all over him. Is it because that's all we see, so we just assume that's the deal?
Yeah, and it's synonymous with all sports. So it's not just, you can't just single out golf. You look at Liverpool with Standard Chartered in the front, or you see Ronaldo with his Nike boots on, or whatever it might be. You always see that association with logo placement. But the logo placement, it's a significant part of the deal, but it's not the deal. It's just a factor. It's an asset. It's one part of many parts to create that agreement. So the best way to look at it is, it's almost like a bit of wrapping paper is the best way to say it. So you're showing that, yes, you're sponsoring that athlete or that team, but and it's just the wrapping paper around it that suggests that, but the brand still has to spend a load of dough in activation. So I know a guy, right, really top guy, and his company sponsors a Premier League football team. They spend circa 3 million quid on the sponsorship deal. He then asks his marketing director, because he's asking me for my ideas and we're just noodling through it, and I'm trying to give him a bit of guidance on this, that, and the next thing. And so I then say, well, how much are you spending on activation? He said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you just spent 3 million accessing the audience. How much are you spending, stimulating the audience? And he says, well, I don't know. I'll check. So, okay, well, ask your marketing director what they should be spending on marketing. So she comes back to him. I can't remember what her name is now. I shouldn't probably say anyway. And she says 20 grand. And I'm like, hang on a second. You're spending 3 million on accessing the audience, and you're going to spend 20 grand, suddenly going to win all this business. Where the hell does that come from? You're so far off the mark.
So was the follow-up to that, instead, sponsor the Dope Stroke Show podcast and we'll activate it?
Well, I said, sponsor us for $1 million and we'll activate you for 2 million. And so the contract's on its way, boys, just so you know. And this time next year, we'll be millionaires.
We'll be on the DVD row in Malaysia is what we'll be.
All those knockoff videos of the Dope Stroke podcast show.
Me and Bobsy doing a flipping fitting teaching duo and you standing there punting it out.
with my long trench coat with DVDs down the side. Nice. Watches on the other side. But yeah, so in terms of myths, I think that if a lot of these guys that are coming through the ranks, if they could just lose the mindset that logo placement is sponsorship, they'll find far more inventive ways to be able to attract sponsorship. And I'm talking about that specifically at the lower level. But as you can see, even the big companies and the big entities, they get it wrong all the time.
I think a bit
brands. Well, hang on a second. The only brands that really do this in the best possible way are the most established brands in sports sponsorship. So when you think of like Adidas or GoPro, Red Bull, TaylorMade, these are companies that have built businesses off the back of sports marketing and sports sponsorships. So they know how to do it well. They're the ones that typically activate really good off the back of the sponsorships they have. It's the ones that have got loads of dough and they spend loads of money on other types of marketing that are not connected to sport. They are the ones that make the most mistakes, even if they've got billions in the bank. See it all the time.
If you're an investor, though, YouTube and the whole social media world is appealing to you. So my question here would be, like, if a young pro, you got 2 young pros to pick from, you don't know much about golf, but one of them's got 500,000 followers on across all channels. Surely that's the one you're going to go with.
Not always. Not always. I would say most of the time, yes. But I would say
that's going to detract from that player as a player. If you're fannying about trying to make a YouTube channel or a social media channel, it just takes time. You know what I mean? So then but
it's obviously proven to be true, though, isn't it? It's proven to work. Look at DeChambeau. Look what he's been able to do. So it can. But
he took a career change in order to start that.
Yeah. Now, what about Tommy Fleetwood? He started to do a little bit more of that. There's more and more players that are doing it.
He's dabbling with it. I wouldn't say he's dropping consistent. I mean, he could have a YouTube channel, no worries. But he's not dropping all the time, is he?
I think that the athletes of tomorrow will get the blend right between what they do online versus on the field of play. I think we're still in its infancy as to how that will work.
I agree. Because
the reality is that, if you turn out to be iconic in your sport, you're going to end up with a big following no matter what you do.
Yeah. I think that lads thing from Jason Day is interesting. How many people eventually will lock into the team that are the lads? Like, I know those boys. They got good personalities. One of them, phenomenal player. 2 or 3 of them are good players. But how long until that can be something without Jason Day even involved?
Yeah. And I think if you're a sponsoring brand, it's obviously going to have huge attraction, because I think one of the key things about the content creator space is it never declines. The audiences never decline. The views keep going. Everything just keeps going up year after year after year. It's much more predictable. Whereas an athlete, and your point earlier, right at the beginning of the show, Trotty, Double D. These kids haven't heard of Double D. Former world number 1, major champion. What the hell? So that's my point. So that's where I think the content creators win out in the end. And certainly in this era or generation that we're in now, I think there are going to be some movements and changes in the future. But right now, that's why I think that sort of content creator economy is definitely booming.
But like Double D, things pass and fade, and that's that. And I think that you heard it here first. And if someone made it to the end of this podcast, I actually want them to send their application to, what are we? hello@dopestroke.com. I'm being serious here.
it.
Is that the actual?
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Here is my first announcement of something that's come to me the other night after I've maybe consumed a few too many of those things we were talking about before we got on. But I'm putting out an offer now. I'm looking for the next generation of trotty golf content creators. And I'm like maybe open for applications here, because the future, if you can have the lads, then you can have the next group of little trotty golfers wanting to be on this channel and help me take this thing forward. So apply. hello@dopestroke.com. Give me a reason. Don't come to me just with your hand and you flipping out. I want to see you. I'm a tour player. Here's me. Like, this is what I've got to offer. We'll get you involved with this 3 million investment bloke. We'll get Rocket Yard punting out the marketing. And before you know it, you'll have a DVD box set in Malaysia. But yeah, mate, I'm looking to like add characters, personalities. Like, let's do this. Send us your application. We'll see how many people actually get to the end of these podcasts.
It'll be quite funny if Malaysian Airlines sends through a proposal to sponsor the Dope Stroke podcast show as well. I'll tell you, that little market stall with all of your trotty golf minions doing content from it will be absolutely ripping it.
I'm looking. I want characters who want to learn about golf equipment, and let's take this forward and bring them in.
Well, there you go. Applications, hello@dopestroke.com. Send them in.
I like the way Trotty's used that email, so you have to do all the admin for it.
Yeah,
He hasn't got to sort through the emails, has he? They're going to go through to you. Clever, Trotty.
Fucking, hey, not just a hat rack, big dog.
Do you know, anytime we put out an ad for a Royal Rocket Yard, we get probably, we have to be quite careful how we do it, because we get 250, 350 CVs at a time.
Well, if I have 350 applicants for this, then we should be in a good spot.
Well, what I'm concerned about is you made your announcement, and now I'm going to get 3,000 CVs come through, and some muppet has got to vet through this and see who's any good.
You can get yourself a whole tour.
Lloyd will be applying.
All right, we'll stick a bow on this thing.
Yeah, right, guys. Thanks again for another episode of the Dope Stroke podcast show. And we're at all the usual places, and we'll see you next week.
We're all off to Jakarta, aren't we, for a quick 10-day holiday?
Jakarta. Let's go to Jakarta. Get to the market stall. See you later. See you next week.